Hello. Let me see how this sounds. Literally, I see. I appreciate you. So I'm trying to monitor it and interact and just way too much going on, really. So cut this music down. Okay. And I'm talking to the back of the microphone, so I'm wilding out. It's that kind of day, right? Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't know if that book stand is gonna be it, but I've been using that food tray, so we've been alright for a minute. But at some point I'm gonna change the setup because I want something a little more cozy. All right, but We got the mic to work. I'm crunk. I can turn the music down and up. I can talk over it. You know what? I need to play some meditation music. You know what? That's what I'm about to do. I'm going to play some meditation music. So I'll be right back. So while we doing visualization, I don't know. It's free. So I don't know if it's going to work. But if it sounds bad, I'll cut it off. It definitely is giving the wrong vibe. So I just really need something to hold the mic up. So, and I can hold the thing in my lap. Okay. So this might help a little bit. And all right, we're gonna see how it goes. It's gonna be our first time trying this, so if it's bad, back to the drawing board, family. So glad to be back with you for Thursday night book club. I've been excited about reading The Alchemist. We'll talk about that. So I think I want to do the breathing exercise that we did Tuesday night, which was 4-7-8. I really did like that breathing exercise. But we're gonna start with the bowl a little bit first. I got my little table here, so hopefully I won't have the bowl so close so it won't be as loud. do like this space though. So, because I get to stretch out, mess around, and move it to the bed, and I'll be reading to y'all from my bed. Oh, that'd be wild. You did the breathing exercise. I was wondering what you're talking about. You did the exercise. So, family, she was here with us Tuesday night. So the 4-7-8 breathing exercise that we're going to do today is on my count of three. You breathe in for 4 seconds. You hold it for 7 seconds. And then you breathe out for 8 seconds. And we repeat that process. We did it 3 times on Tuesday, so we'll do it 3 times tonight. And it is supposed to be a breathing exercise that helps with anxiety and if you're struggling to go to sleep at night. So it's very good for that. And someone was saying on TikTok that they did the exercise and overslept. So you do it too many times, you definitely feel a little lightheaded, like you got to lay down. So don't do it too many times. Start off with 3, like we're doing, and then you can work your way up to more times outside of 3. So remember, 4-7-8. Breathe in for 4, hold 7, out for 8. My count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. One more time. My count of 3. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 7. Out for 8. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time. My count of 3. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 7. Out for 8. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Now, should be in a comfortable position. Take a deep, relaxing breath. Gather yourself. Close your eyes. Leave your eyes open. We are back on our second chakra, second energy point, which is our sacral. Color orange. Element water. So this time, since our element is water, let's think. I thought about swimming in the ocean, but my spirit right now says, imagine yourself in the shape of a rain cloud. You can be deep and dark or light and gray. But right now, just imagine you getting into the shape of the rain cloud that represents you. Imagine the intensity of you growing inside, the passion, the joy, the anger, the love. You feel each one of them as droplets building, compounding, expanding, but just moving around inside of you. You have worthiness. You have family. You have spirituality. You have intelligence. You have rhetoric. You have experience. You have desire. Each of these things building up and feeling and expanding your cloud until you reach the tipping point and explode with release. Imagine yourself raining down that love, that passion, that pain, that knowledge, that connectionness on to the earth, the people, the plant. And as each drop relieves from you, you feel release. And as you feel release, I want you to repeat after me. I am a creative being. I deserve to enjoy life. I am emotionally balanced. I welcome sensuality into my life. I am worthy and lovable. And for every drop that you release, you replenish yourself. You rain down and wash away with, I am a creative being. You expand. I deserve to enjoy life. You expand. I am emotionally balanced. You expand. I welcome sensuality into my life. You expand. I am worthy and lovable. You expand. All right, family. So we're gonna get started with this book. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna put this mic somewhere. Oh, I forgot I got my little heater on. I got a little space heater in it. That thing doing work today, believe it. Because it's a little chilly in here, surprisingly. Listen, we, we gonna make it do what it do. You dig? For the time being. Right. So we are where I forget the main character. I gotta stop saying the main character. I need to learn dude's name so I can actually say his name. But I think he is saying he is going to buy his sheep again. But the crystal shop owner is saying that he is more than likely not going to do that at all. And I agree with the crystal shop owner. Nasir, so glad to have you join, brother. See, I can monitor a little bit. I'm doing a little better this time. I thought it wasn't gonna let the Twitch comments show because when I tried to do Twitch, I tried to leave a comment from Twitch. It told me I needed to log in, which is crazy because I'm logged in through Twitch. So I don't know. Maybe it was just giving me a hard time. But brother, we are reading The Alchemist. And okay. Oh shoot. I gotta get another position. Let me turn. Okay, this might be a little better. It's gonna work for the night. So again, um, the boy is getting ready to leave, and he asked the shop owner for his blessings. Damn. The boy went to his room and packed his belongings. 3 filled sacks. As he was leaving, he saw in the corner. Excuse me, something was on the screen. Saw in the corner of the room his old shepherd's pouch. It was bunched up, and he hardly thought of it for a long time. As he took out his jacket out of his pouch, thinking to give it to someone in the streets, the 2 stones fell on the floor, Urim and Thummim. It made the boy think of the old king, and it startled him to realize how long it had been since he had thought of him. For nearly a year, he had been working incessantly, thinking only of putting aside enough money so that he could return to Spain with pride. Never stop dreaming, the old king said. Follow the omens. The boy picked up Urim and Thummim and once again had a strange sensation that the old king was nearby. He had worked hard for a year, and the omens were that it was time to go. I'm going to go back to doing just what I did before, the boy thought. Even though the sheep didn't teach me to speak Arabic, but the sheep had taught him something even more important, that there was a language in this world that everyone understood. a language the boy used throughout the time he was there, trying to improve things at the shop. It was the language of enthusiasm, of things accomplished with love and purpose, as a part of a search for something believed in and desired. Tangier was no longer a strange city, and he felt that just as he had conquered this place, he could conquer the world. When you want something, all the universe conspires to help you achieve it, the old king had said. But the old king hadn't said anything about being robbed, or about the endless deserts, or about the people who know what their dreams are but don't want to realize them. Wow, right? The old king hadn't told him about the pyramids was just a pile of stones, or that anyone can build one in his backyard. And he had forgotten to mention that when you have enough money to buy a flock larger than the one you had before, you should buy it. The boy picked up his pouch and put it with his other things. He went down the stairs and found the merchant waiting on a foreign couple, while two other customers walked about the shop drinking tea from crystal glasses. It was more active than usual for this time in the morning. From where he stood, he saw for the first time the old merchant's hair was very much like the hair of the old king. He remembered the smile of the candy seller on his first day in Tangier, when he had nothing to eat and nowhere to go. That smile had also been like the king's smile. It's almost as if he had been here and left his mark, he thought. And yet, none of these people have met the old king. On the other hand, he said that he always appeared to help those who are trying to realize their personal legend. He left without saying goodbye to the crystal merchant. He didn't want to cry with the other people there. He was going to miss the place and all the good things he had learned. He was more confident in himself, though, and felt as though he could conquer the world. But I'm going back to the fields that I know to take care of my flock again. He said that to himself with certainty, but he was no longer happy with his decision. He had worked for an entire year to make a dream come true, and that dream, minute by minute, was becoming less important. Maybe because that wasn't really his dream. Who knows? Maybe it's better to be like the crystal merchant, never to go to Mecca, and just go through life wanting to do so, he thought, and trying to convince himself. But as he held Urim and Thummim in his hand, they had transmitted to him the strength and the will of the old king. By coincidence, or maybe it was an omen. The boy thought he came to the bar he had entered on the first day. The thief wasn't there, and the owner brought him a cup of tea. I can always go back to being a shepherd, the boy thought. I learned how to care for sheep, and I haven't forgot that's done. But maybe I'll never have another chance to get to the pyramids in Egypt. The old man wore a blessed plate of gold, and he knew about my past. He really was a king, a wise king. And the hills of Andalusia were only 2 hours away, but there was an entire desert between him and the pyramids. Yet the boy felt that there was another way to regard his situation. He was actually 2 hours closer to his treasure. The fact that the 2 hours had stretched into an entire year didn't matter. I know why I want to go back to my flock, he thought. I understand sheep. They're no longer a problem, and they can be good friends. On the other hand, I don't know if the desert can be a friend, and it's in the desert that I have to search for my treasure. If I don't find it, I can always go home. I finally have enough money and all the time I need. Why not? He suddenly felt tremendously happy. He could always go back to being the shepherd. He could always become a crystal salesman again. Maybe the world had other hidden treasures, but he had a dream and he had met with the king. That doesn't happen just to anyone. He was planning as he left the bar. He had remembered that one of the crystal merchant suppliers transported his crystal by means of caravans that crossed the desert. He held Urim and Thummim in his hand. Because of these two stones, he once again on the way to his treasure. I'm always nearby when someone wants to realize their personal legend, the king had told him. What could it cost him to go to the supplier's warehouse and find out if the pyramids were really that far away? Excuse me. Uh, thanks. Listening in spirit, I appreciate that. The Englishman was sitting on the bench in a structure that smelled of animals, sweat, and dust. It was part warehouse, part corral. I never thought I'd end up in a place like this, he thought as he leafed through the pages of a chemical journal. 10 years at the university, and here I am at a corral. But he had to move on. He believed in omens. All his life and all his studies were aimed at finding the one true language of the universe. First, he had studied Esperanto, then the world's religions, and now it was alchemy. He knew how to speak Esperanto. He understood all the major religions well, but he wasn't yet an alchemist. He had unraveled the truth behind important questions, but his studies had taken him to a point beyond which he could not seem to go. He had tried in vain to establish a relationship with an alchemist, but the alchemists were strange people who thought only about themselves and almost always refused to help him. Who knows? Maybe they had failed to discover the secret of masterwork, the philosopher's stone, and for this reason kept their knowledge to themselves. Because you ain't supposed to. Knowledge is supposed to be given. He had already spent much of his fortune left to him by his father fruitlessly seeking the philosopher's stone. He had spent enormous amount of times at the great libraries of the world. He had purchased all of the rarest and most important volumes of alchemy. In one, he had read that many years ago, a famous Arabian alchemist had visited Europe. It was said that he was more than 200 years old and that he had discovered the philosopher's stone and the elixir of life. The Englishman had been profoundly impressed by the story, but he would never have thought of it more than just a myth. Had not a friend of his, returning from an archaeological, expedition in the desert, told him about an Arab that was possessed of exceptional powers. He lives at the El Foyam Oasis, his friend had said, and people say that he is 200 years old and is able to transform any metal into gold. The Englishman could not contain his excitement. He concealed all of his commitments and pulled together the most important of his books. And now, here he was, sitting inside a dusty, smelly warehouse. Outside, a huge caravan was being prepared for crossing the Sahara and was scheduled to pass through El Foyum. I'm going to find that damn alchemist, the Englishman thought. The odor of the animals became a bit more tolerable. A young Arab, also loaded down with baggage, entered and greeted the Englishman. Where are you bound? Asked the young Arab. I'm going into the desert, the man answered, turning back to his reading. He didn't want any conversation at this point. What he needed to do was review all he had learned over the years, because the alchemist would certainly put him to the test. The young Arab took a look at the book again and began to read. The book was written in Spanish. That's good, thought the Englishman. He spoke Spanish better than Arabic. And if this boy was going to Al Fayoum, there would be someone to talk to when there were no other important things to do. That's strange, said the boy as he tried once again to read the burial scene that began the book. I've been trying for 2 years to read this book, and I never get past these first few pages. Even without a king to provide interruption, he was unable to concentrate. He still had some doubts about the decision he had made, but he was able to understand one thing. Making a decision was only the beginning of things. When someone makes a decision, he is really diving into a strong current that will carry him to places he never dreamed of when he first made that decision. When I decided to seek out my true treasure, I never imagined I'd wind up working a crystal shop, he thought. And joining this caravan may have been my decision, but where it goes is going to be a mystery to me. And that can be scary to a lot of people, that unknown. Nearby was the Englishman reading a book. He seemed unfriendly and he looked irritated when the boy entered. They might even have become friends, but the Englishman closed off the conversation. The boy closed his book. He felt that he didn't want to do anything that might make him look like the Englishman. He took Urim and Thummim from his pocket and began playing with them. The stranger shouted, "Urim and Thummim!" In a flash, the boy put them back in his pocket. "They're not for sale," he said. "They're not worth much," the Englishman answered. "They're only made of rock crystal, and there are millions of rock crystals in this earth. But those who know about such things would know that those are Urim and Thummim. I didn't know that they had been part of this part of the world. They were given to me as a present by a king," the boy said. The stranger didn't answer. Instead, he put his hands in his pocket and took out 2 stones that were the same as the boy's. "Did you say a king?" he asked. "I guess you don't believe that a king would talk to someone like me, a shepherd," he said, wanting to end the conversation. "Not at all. It was shepherds who were the first to recognize a king that all the rest of the world refused to acknowledge. So it's not surprising that kings would talk to shepherds." Valid. And he went on, fearing that the boy wouldn't understand what he was talking about. "It's in the Bible, the same book that taught me about Urim and Thummim. These stones were only form of divination permitted. These stones were the only form of divination permitted by God. The priest carried them in a golden breastplate." The boy was suddenly happy. Sorry. The boy was suddenly happy to be here at the warehouse. "Maybe this is an omen," said the Englishman half aloud. "Who told you about omens?" The boy's interest was increasing by moment. "Everything in life is an omen," said the Englishman, now closing the journal he was reading. "There's a universal language understood by everybody, but already forgotten. I'm in search of that universal language, among other things. That's why I'm here. I have to find a man who knows that universal language, an alchemist." The conversation was interrupted by the warehouse boss. "You're in luck, you two," the fat Arab said. "There's a caravan leaving today for Al Fayoum." "But I'm going to Egypt," the boy said. "Al Fayoum is in Egypt," said the Arab. "What kind of Arab are you?" "That's a good luck omen," the Englishman said, after the fat Arab had gone. "If I could write a huge encyclopedia just about the world's luck and coincidence, it's with those words the universal language is written." Valid. He told the boy it was no coincidence that he had met him in Urim and Thummim in his hand. He asked the boy if he too were in search of an alchemist. "I'm looking for a treasure," said the boy. He immediately regretted having said it, but the Englishman appeared not to attach any importance to it. "In a way, so am I," he said. "I don't even know what alchemy is," the boys were saying. But the warehouse boss called them to come inside. Right. I am the leader of the caravan, said the dark-eyed bearded man. I hold the power of life and death for every person I take with me. The desert is a precarious lady, and sometimes she drives men crazy. There were almost 200 people gathered there, and 400 animals, camels, horses, mules, and fowl. In the crowd were women, children, and a number of men with swords at their belts and rifles slung on their shoulders. The Englishman had several suitcases filled with books. There was babble of noise, and the leader had to repeat himself several times for everyone to understand what he was saying. There are a lot of different people here, and each has his own God. But the only God I serve is Allah. And in his name, I swear that I will do everything possible once again to win out over the desert. But I want each and every one of you to swear by the God you believe in that you will follow my orders no matter what. In the desert, disobedience means death. There was a murmur from the crowd. Each was swearing quietly to his or own God. The boy swore to Jesus Christ. The Englishman said nothing, and the murmur lasted longer than a simple vow would have. The people were also praying to heaven for protection. A long note was sounded on a bugle, and everyone mounted up. The boy and the Englishman had bought camels and climbed uncertainly onto their backs. The boy felt sorry for the Englishman's camel, loaded down as it was with cases of books. There is no such thing as coincidence, said the Englishman, picking up the conversation where it had been interrupted in the warehouse. I'm here because a friend of mine heard of an Arab who. But the caravan began to move, and it was impossible to hear what the Englishman was saying. The boy knew what he was about to describe, though. The mysterious chain that links one thing to another, the same chain that had caused him to become a shepherd, that had caused his recurring dream, that had brought him to a city near Africa to find a king and to be robbed in order to meet a crystal merchant. And the closer one gets to realizing his personal legend, the more that personal legend becomes his true reason for being, thought the boy. The caravan moved towards the east. It traveled during the morning, halted when the sun was at its strongest, and resumed late in the afternoon. The boy spoke very little with the Englishman, who spent most of his time with his books. The boy observed in silence the progress of the animals and the people across the desert. Now, everything was quite different from how it was that day they had set out. Then there had been confusion and shouting, the cries of children and the whining of animals, all mixed with nervous orders of the guides and the merchants. But in the desert, there was only the sound of the eternal wind and the hoofbeats of the animals. Even the guides spoke very little to one another. I've crossed these sands many times, said one of the camel drivers one night, but the desert is so huge and horizons so distant that they make a person feel small and as if he should remain silent. The boy understood intuitively what he meant, even without ever having set foot in the desert before. Whenever he saw the sea or a fire, he felt silent, impressed by their elemental force. I know that's right. I've learned things from sheep. I've learned things from crystals, he thought. I can learn something from the desert too. It seems old and wise, and it is. The wind never stopped, and the boy remembered the day he had sat at the fort in Tarifia with the same wind blowing in his face. It reminded him of the wool of his sheep. His sheep were now seeking food and water in the fields of Andalusia. They're not my sheep anymore, he said to himself. Without nostalgia, they must be used to their new shepherd and have probably already forgotten me. That's good. Creatures like the sheep that are used to traveling know about moving on. Hmm. That's interesting. He thought of the merchant's daughter and was sure that she had probably married, perhaps to a baker or to another shepherd who could read and could tell her exciting stories. After all, he probably wasn't the only one. But he was excited at the intuitive understanding of the camel driver's comment. Maybe he was also learning the universal language that deals with the past and the present of all people. Hunches, his mother used to call them. The boy was beginning to understand that intuition is really a sudden emergence of the soul into the universal current of light, where the histories of all people are connected, and we are able to know everything because it's written there. Maktub, the boy said, remembering the crystal merchant. The desert was all sand in some stretches and rocky in others. When the caravan was blocked by a boulder, it had to take a major detour. If the sand was too fine for the animals' hooves, they sought a way where the sand was more substantial. In some places, the ground was covered with salt of dried up lakes. The animals balked at such places, and the camel drivers were forced to dismount and unburden their charges. The drivers carried the freight themselves over such treacherous footing and then reloaded the camels. If a guide were to fall ill or die, the camel drivers would draw lots and appoint a new one. Dang, that is shit. But all this happened for one basic reason. No matter how many detours and adjustments it made, the caravan moved toward the same compass point. Once obstacles were overcome, it returned to its course, sighting one star that indicated the location of the oasis. When the people saw that star shining in the morning sky, they knew they were on the right path, toward water, palm trees, shelter, and other people. It was only the Englishman who was unaware of all of this. He was, for the most part, immersed in reading his books. The boy, too, had his book, and he had tried to read it during the first few days of the journey, but he found it much more interesting to observe the caravan and listen to the wind. As soon as he had learned to know his camel better and establish a relationship with him, he threw the books away. Although the boy had developed a superstition that each time he opened the book, he would learn something important, he decided it was an unnecessary burden. He became friendly with the camel driver who traveled alongside him. At night, as they sat around the fire, the boy related to the driver his adventures as a shepherd. During one of the conversations, the driver told of his own life. I used to live near El Karim, he said. I had my orchard, my children, and a life that would change not at all until I died. One year when the crop was best ever, we all went to Mecca, and I satisfied the only unmet obligation in my life. I could die happily, and that made me feel good. One day the earth began to shrivel, and the Nile overflowed its banks. It was something that I thought could happen only to others, never to me. My neighbors feared that they would lose all of their olive trees in the flood, and my wife was afraid that we would lose our children. I thought that everything I owned would be destroyed. The land was ruined, and I had to find some other way to earn a living. So now I'm a camel driver. But that disaster taught me to understand the word of Allah. People need not fear the unknown if they are capable of achieving what they need and want. I know that's right. You don't need to fear the unknown if you understand your skills and your ability to bring dreams to life. We are afraid of losing what we have, whether it's our life or our possessions and our property. But this fear evaporates when we understand that our life stories and the history of our world were written by the same hand. Sometimes that caravan met with another. One always had something that the other needed, and if everything were indeed written by one hand. As they sat around the fire, the camel drivers exchanged information about windstorms and told stories about the deserts. At other times, mysterious hooded men would appear. They were Bodines, who did surveillance along the caravan route. They provide warnings about thieves and barbarian tribes. They came in silence and departed the same way, dressed in black garments that showed only half their eyes. One night, a camel driver came to the fire where the Englishman and the boy were sitting. There are rumors of tribal wars, he told them. The three fell silent. The boy noted that there was only a sense of fear in the air, even though no one said anything. Once again, he was experiencing a language without words, the universal language. The Englishman asked if they were in danger. Once you get into the desert, there's no going back, said the camel driver. And when you can't go back, you have to only worry about the best way of moving forward. The rest is up to Allah, including the danger. He concluded by saying the mysterious word maktub, said to the Englishman after the camel driver had left. We make a lot of detours, but we're always heading for the same destination. And you ought to read more about the world, answered the Englishman. Books are like caravans in that respect. The immense collection of people and animals began to travel faster. The days had been silent, but now, even the nights, when the travelers were accustomed to talking around fires, they had also became quiet. And one day, the leader of the caravan made a decision that the fires should no longer be lighted so as not to attract attention to the caravans. The travelers adapted the practice of arranging animals in a circle at night, sleeping together in the center as protection against the nocturnal cold, and the leader posted armed sentinels at the fringes of the group. The Englishman was unable to sleep one night. He called to the boy, and they took a walk along the dunes surrounding the encampment. There was a full moon, and the boy told the Englishman the story of his life. The Englishman was fascinated with the part about the progress achieved at the crystal shop after the boy began working there. That's the principle that governs all things, he said. In alchemy, it's called the soul of the world. When you want something with all your heart, that's when you're the closest to it. The soul of the world. It's always a positive force. He also said that it was not just a human gift, that everything on the face of the earth had a soul, whether mineral, vegetable, or animal, or even just the simplest thought. Everything on earth is being continuously transformed because the earth is alive, which is true. And it has a soul. We are a part of that soul, so we rarely recognize that it's working for us. But in the crystal shop, you probably realize that even the glasses were collaborating in your success. I know that's right. The boy thought about that for a while as he looked at the moon and the bleached sands. I have watched the caravan as it crossed the desert, he said. The caravan and the desert speak the same language, and it's for that reason the desert allows the crossing. It's going to test the caravans every step to see if it's in time, and if it is, we will make it to the oasis. If either of us had joined this caravan based only on personal courage, but without understanding that language, this journey would have been even much more difficult. They stood there looking at the moon. That's the magic of omens, the boy said. I've seen how the gods read the signs of the desert and how the soul of the caravan speaks to the soul of the desert. The Englishman said, I better pay more attention to the caravan. And I better read your book, said the boy. They just had that drop of oil. where he went to that story where he told that dude to carry that drop of oil around in the spoon. And he didn't see none of the beauty of the castle. And then when he looked at the beauty of the castle, he spilled all the oil in the spoon. They were strange books. They spoke about Mercury, salt, dragons, and kings. He didn't understand any of it. But there was one idea that seemed to repeat itself throughout all the books. All things that are manifestations of one thing only. In one of the books, he had learned that the most important text in literature of alchemy contained only a few lines and had been inscribed on the surface of the emerald. It's the emerald tablet, the Englishman said, proud that he might teach something to the boy. Well, then, why do we need all these books? The boy asked. So that we can understand those few lines. The Englishman answered without appearing really to believe what he had said. The book that the most interested the boy told stories of the famous alchemists. They were men who had dedicated their entire lives to the purification of metals in their laboratories. They believed that if metal were heated for many years, it would free itself from all its individual properties, and what was left would be the soul of the world. This soul of the world allowed them to understand anything on the face of the earth because it was the language with which all things communicated. They called that discovery the masterwork. It was part of liquid, part solid. Can't you just observe men and omens in order to understand the language? The boy asked. You have a mania for simplifying everything. Ah, man, this that is funny because I gotta start saying it that way. I run into people who they are obsessed with certain things. Every time you say something to them, hey, why? Listen, you have a mania over simplifying things. I love that. Like, yo, you wrecking my nerves. Why? Oh God. Where we at? You have a mania for simplifying everything, answered the Englishman, irritated. Alchemy is a serious discipline. Every step has to be followed exactly as it was followed by the masters. The boy learned that the liquid part of the master's work was called an elixir of life, and that it cured all illness. It also kept the alchemist from growing old. And the part solid was called the philosopher's stone. It's not easy to find the philosopher's stone, said the Englishman. The alchemists spent years in their laboratories observing the fire that purified the metals. They spent so much time close to that fire that gradually they gave up the vanities of the world. They discovered that the purification of the metals had led to purification of themselves. The boy thought about the crystal merchant. He had said that it was a good thing for the boy to clean the crystal pieces so that he could free himself from negative thoughts. The boy was becoming more and more convinced that alchemy could be learned in one's daily life. Also, said the Englishman, the philosopher's stone has a fascinating property. A small sliver of the stone can transform large quantities of metals to gold. Having heard that, the boy became even more interested in alchemy. He thought that with some patience, he'd be able to transform everything into gold. He read lives of the various people who had succeeded in doing so. Helvidus, Elias, Fulcanelli, and Geber. They were fascinating stories. Each of them lived out their personal legend to the end. They traveled, spoke with wise men, performed miracles for the incredulous, and owned the philosopher's stone and the elixir of life. But when the boy wanted to learn how to achieve the master work, he became completely lost. They were just drawings, coded instructions, and obscure text. Let's see where we at. All right, I'll finish this chapter up, then we'll move on. We'll wrap up tonight after that, family. Why do they make things so complicated? He asked the Englishman one night. The boy had noticed that the Englishman was irritable and missed his books, so that those who have the responsibility for understanding can understand. He said, imagine if everyone went around transforming lead into gold. Gold would lose its value. It's only for those who are persistent and willing to study things deeply who achieve the masterwork. That's why I'm here in the middle of the desert. I'm seeking a true alchemist who will help me decipher the codes. When were these books written? The boy asked. Many centuries ago. They didn't have printing press in those days, the boy argued. There was no way for everybody to know about alchemy. Why did they use such strange language with so many drawings? The Englishman didn't answer him directly. He said that for the past few days he had been paying attention to how the caravan operated, but that he hadn't learned anything new. The only thing that he had noticed was the talk of war was becoming more and more frequent. Then one day, the boy returned the books of the Englishman. Did you learn anything? The Englishman asked. Eager to hear what it might be, he needed someone to talk to as to avoid thinking about the possibility of war. I learned that the world has a soul and that whoever understands that soul can also understand the language of things. I learned that many alchemists realized their personal legends and wound up discovering the soul of the world, the philosopher's stone, and the elixir of life. But above all, I learned that these things are so simple that they could be written on the surface of an emerald. The Englishman was disappointed. The years of research, the magic symbols, the strange words, and the laboratory equipment, none of this had made an impression on the boy. His soul must be too primitive to understand the things that he thought. He took his books back and packed them away again in their bags. Go back to watching the caravan, he said. That didn't teach me anything either. The boy went back to contemplating the silence of the desert and the sand raised by the animals. Everyone has his or her own way of learning things, he said to himself. His way isn't the same as mine, nor is mine his. But we're both in search of our personal legends, and I respect him for that. The caravan began to travel day and night. The hooded Boudins would appear more and more frequently, and the camel driver, who had become a good friend of the boys, explained that the war between the tribes had already begun. The caravan would be lucky to reach the oasis. The animals were exhausted, and the men talked among themselves less and less. The silence was the worst aspect of the night. When there were mere groan of a camel, which before had been nothing but groan of a camel, now frightened everyone, because it might be a signal of a raid. The camel driver, though, seemed not to be very concerned with the threat of war. I'm alive, he said to the boy as they ate a bunch of dates one night, with no fires and no moon. When I'm eating, that's all I'm thinking about. If I'm on the march, I just concentrate on marching. If I have to fight, it will be just as good as a day to die as any other, because I don't live in either my past or my future. I'm interested in only the present. If you can concentrate always on the present, you'll be a happy man. You'll see that there's life in the desert, that there are stars in the heavens, and that tribes fight because they are part of the human race. Life will be a party for you, a grand festival, because life is the moment we're living right now. 2 nights later, as he was getting ready to bed down, the boy looked for the star they followed every night. He thought that the horizon was a bit lower than it had been because he seemed to see the stars on the desert itself. It's the oasis, said the camel driver. Well, why don't we go there right now? The boy asked. Because we have to sleep. All right, that's a good time. We can start at the oasis. when we get back. Hey, we love the book. I don't know if I want to call you Nikki or Marlena, but I figured it was you. I love the book still. So we decide. Well, not we decided. I decided to start making sure I tie the books into the Tuesday night show a little bit more. So, I think for us that's a better way for us to do it, because we read these books and these books do offer us understandings and things like that. So great book. It made me think that we might do the Celestine prophecies next, which would be dope too. You know what I mean? So I think we'll be able to build on that, which would be awesome. You know what I mean? So now I actually figured out a way where I don't even have to. You don't have to see me walk off all the time. But actually, I wonder if the music's still playing. It is, family. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great weekend. And what is it's I don't know. I feel like I'm a week in advance. Is Monday supposed to be Indigenous Peoples Day? Yeah, it is. So enjoy your Indigenous Peoples Day. We'll see you Tuesday. Well, I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know. We were doing the suggestion. We might do a part 2 of suggestion. I don't know. We did a great job with suggestion. I don't know. I'll work on it. Yeah, we figured out. In a couple of weeks though, I will be in Atlanta, and I know we have something going on, so I will not be able to go live that week. I think I come home Thursday night too, so week before Halloween. But I'll give you a reminder next week. So see you either Tuesday or next Thursday as we finish the Alchemist. And Marlena, that was a great suggestion too. You know what I mean? So you did the best suggestion. Everybody else they hate us. All right, family. I see y'all next week, I think. Boop, 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 boop.